Welcome to your first session of Achieve Your Best Self program. This session will be an introduction to the program plus a recap of the basics you were given in your first one-on-one session with me. I have so much to share with you, and I hope that you find it all helpful in achieving your goals. And I just wanted to let you know I'm also very excited to be doing this along with you. I'll warn you though, there's a lot that will be covered, but in small detail, to introduce the big ideas that the program is based on. But don't worry, we'll have a recap of the session at the end with the main points that you should take away from this webinar. To start, for most of you here, this is likely not your first attempt at improving your body composition, or what society refers to as weight loss. However, my intent and hope is that dieting and your attempts at weight loss stop here. And so if you were to take one and only one thing away from today's webinar, it'd be this: weight loss and achieving your body composition does not require an intense dietary or intense exercise regimen. It is small, gradual steps taken with love towards improved health. However, weight loss and long-term success is dependent on one very important factor, and I'll introduce what this is shortly. But before I do that, let me tell you a story. There was a time in my life where food was a constant obsession, and I was constantly on a diet. Unhappy with my body, absolutely lacking self-confidence. I was anxious about every morsel of food I ate. I counted calories and was constantly in a state of guilt over every bite. There was no joy in food or enjoyment or pleasure in eating. In my mind, however, I thought I loved food, and maybe I loved food too much, and that's why I was having so much problem with it. The reality was, however, that the predominant emotion in my relationship to food was anxiety, guilt, anger, hate, and disgust. With every weigh-in, there was frustration and a further loss of self-esteem and a form of self-punishment with my negative thoughts, blaming myself for being weak and lacking willpower. Then there was the frequent self-sabotage. I do well for a while, and then with the slightest half-pound increase in weight, I'd get so down that I just want to eat whatever was in sight. I'll tell you how extremely I was dieting. I once went on a 3-week just eating raw fruits and veggies. And I gave myself the exception of having one small handful of almonds per day. I came near to fainting often. It was so tough that by the end of it, when I first put a spoon in my mouth, the feel of that round metal in my mouth and on my tongue was a sensation as if I'd never experienced it before. It was really pretty extreme with the dieting I was doing at the time. As I was preparing this webinar, I thought I'd go through some of my old pictures and of the time and show you how chubby I was. However, I chose not to because I wasn't that noticeably bigger than I am now. And that is also very likely, I'm going to guess, the case for most of you. But I understand that at this point, nothing I tell you will help you feel or think differently about yourself and your body. So we'll take small, gradual steps to help you improve your body composition as well as your image of yourself, because that is essential to achieving your goals. Okay? So for myself, time-wise, this obsession with food all started when I was going through puberty. This was a time of change, a slight increase in body fat, a slight increase in curves that I wasn't used to. But in my mind, it was devastating. And there are certain times in a woman's life, like puberty, pregnancy, childbirth, perimenopause, and menopause, that are times of transformation, and they can bring about a physiological change as well as a mental and emotional change that, if they're not processed properly and correctly, can result in an unhealthy relationship with our body that then reveals itself in our relationship with food. And so I'm basically here to tell you that I'm not that girl anymore. Something shifted for me along the way after years of obsession and brought me to a point where my relationship to food is now natural. It's easy. I was, at the time, still eating right. I was working out well, and I was doing okay maintaining my healthy body composition. It, however, required constant, conscious, conscious and consistent willpower that was very draining, and it left little willpower for much else, really. And it wasn't until this one thing that brought it all to a place where my relationship with food became effortless. Thing is, you can all know, you can know all there is to know about eating right and exercising right for weight loss, but if there's still this subconscious struggle with your body and your eating habits, you will continue to have a challenge. So what is this one thing? Well, it's kind of like this. You know, when you're thirsty for a drink, you start getting an uncomfortably dry mouth, and so you're cued to your thirst and your need for water. However, it doesn't cause you stress. It doesn't cause you anxiety. And if you're really busy, you may forget about it and put it off for another half hour or even hours before you check in with yourself again and realize, wait, I still haven't had that drink of water that I needed 3 hours ago. Even then, you know, there's water around and you have access to it, so you can have it whenever you desire. You do not fear thirst, and your thirst does not make you anxious. Can we all relate to this? Okay, so tell me, why is it that there's so much anxiety around food, even though we can survive longer without food than we can without water? So actually, you know, physiologically speaking, thirst should create a greater anxiety than hunger does. My point is this: I've done it all. I've been through the emotional roller coaster of guilt at having overeaten or breaking a diet, the anxiety of calorie counting, the fear of getting on the scale after a week of intense effort. And through it all, I've finally come out on the other end. And I can now look back with 20/20 vision, and this is what I'm going to share with you in these webinars in this program. They're the keys to bringing about that same transformation for yourself, hence resulting in your optimal and healthy body composition. So at this point, I'm going to turn the webcam off and start the slideshow I've prepared. If you have access to a pen and paper, grab it while I set up the screen. You are listening to me, you're visually absorbing the information that's provided on the screen, and to further enhance your memory, writing down anything that you find personally helpful or inspiring will help consolidate that memory and that information in your brain. So go grab your pen while I set this up. Just another second. Let me start the slideshow. Okay, here we are. Recording as I intended to. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so what is this one thing? Well, it is this: changing your relationship to food such that it becomes easy, natural, and does not induce anxiety or stress, and no longer requires willpower to maintain your body composition. Can you imagine what that's like? To have a piece of cake at a party without measuring its calorie content and wondering how long you'll have to be on the treadmill to burn it off. Can you imagine eating a healthy, balanced meal with occasional indulgences and without the guilt, the stress, the worry, or anxiety. To basically treat your hunger as you most likely currently treat your thirst. To treat your food intake as you do your water intake. Imagine that. That is the one key to long-term success. How are you going to get there? Well, I'll tell you. I've got the blueprint for that because I've been there, I've been through it, and I've also helped others through it. So the one thing is ease, comfort, and a naturally healthy connection to food and eating. Now, to start, let me ask you this. Do you want your healthy body composition or whatever your goal weight is to last only short term? I doubt it. And so remember, even where weight loss is concerned, you can't rush something you want to last forever. Now, what do I mean by gradual steps taken with love? We'll talk more about this in detail, but it basically refers to your self-compassion. So being kind to yourself, being loving to yourself, and making self-care a priority. Okay, so what are some of the tools that we'll be using in this program? Well, you were already given the menu plan. If you are needing recipes and you need help with incorporating the menu plan, let me know at your next visit and I'll share them with you. Next is an accountability journal, basically journaling your diary for the week. I want you to fill this out. Now, whether you send it to me or not is optional. This would serve two purposes. Firstly, for you to get a visual of how much or how little you're eating, the timing of your meals, and how well balanced they are. Second, if you choose to, for me to have a look at them so I can guide you along by making little adjustments as needed that will bring to your awareness the little tidbits that are not usually common knowledge, but will bring about a huge transformation in achieving your goals. And thirdly, motivational and inspirational stories and posts that I will be sharing on social media throughout this program. So if you aren't already, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram if you would like to. I highly recommend that you do. I'll be dedicating the next 6 weeks to this program. So I'll be posting no more than 3 to 4 times a week on various topics related to helping you achieve your success. Okay. So you may be thinking, that's great, but I don't like going on a diet. Well, this is not a diet, and I will continue to re-emphasize this point. You are given a menu plan that you are expected to gradually begin altering and adjusting your current diet to reflect that menu plan. However, to succeed, you are not required to go on a diet per se. Okay. Second, you may be thinking, I have massive cravings and I'm afraid of limiting my food choices. Well, your goal will be to eliminate cravings gradually by changing your habits. Our brain circuitry will not change through deprivation. So it does not understand no, as you might already know. It will, however, change through its current circuitry being replaced by new habits, which will be our goal. Third, you might be thinking, I don't have a great record, a track record where my willpower is concerned. Well, I'm here to tell you we all have a very limited capacity of willpower. So our goal in this program will be to eliminate your need for willpower. You do not need willpower to succeed where your body composition is concerned. Okay, if you do it right. 4, I don't like to cook. Well, no need for a complete diet overhaul. If you're challenged with a menu plan, let's discuss it in our one-on-one visit, and I'll do my best to help you incorporate the new foods into your current diet so you don't have to go out and begin making new recipes and putting much effort into new foods, okay? 5, you might be thinking, well, I have a really hard time exercising and I don't enjoy it. I'll say again, no need for exercise actually. exercise has an effect on weight loss that is very negligible, okay? If so, you're going to be asked to increase your activity level, increase your play, but exercise is optional where this program is concerned, okay? Number 6, I have tried all sorts of diets and programs. So what's so different about this one? Well, what's different is that it's not a fad, it's not a trend, it is not a quick fix. So if that is what you're expecting, this is not going to bring about a quick fix for you. It is, however, based on the latest research on food science and body composition at how to achieve a healthy body composition. And it is also based on the latest in neuropsychology to help you reprogram your habits where they are related around your food intake and your lifestyle, your current lifestyle, okay? So now at this point you may be thinking, well, okay, I want to do this and I know I can, but I have zero energy and I'm always tired and I really don't have time. Well, the root of all of these, no time, no energy, and feeling fatigued and tired, is really a lack of self-love or a lack of prioritizing your self-care and prioritizing your health and well-being, okay? As one spiritual leader says, where there is love, nothing is too much trouble, and there is always time. So if you can direct some of that love towards yourself and prioritize you, you can find the time, you will learn to, or you will gain increased energy by addressing self-care and self-love, okay? We'll discuss this further in our upcoming webinars, but just a mini introduction to this concept of self-love, where weight loss and body composition is concerned. Okay, just want to give you a quick reminder, you can do it. Now, what is this program? Well, it is a program based on the latest scientific evidence regarding weight loss and all the contributing factors that lead to success. And those factors are the following. 1, surprise, surprise, the number 1 determining factor for successful weight loss is support. So the studies show that no matter what diet you go on, whether it's low fat, low calories, low carbohydrates, low sugar, whatever it may be, the research shows that the common denominator where weight loss goals are concerned is support. Whether you have support or not will determine your success. Okay. And so this program is designed for maximum support with one-on-one visits with myself, as well as these weekly webinars with me and others that are on the same journey as you. Number 2, it is your diet and activity level. Diet being more important than your activity. So yes, what you eat, of course, influences your body composition. However, it is not as simple as calories in having to be less than calories out to achieve success. There are much greater dietary factors determining weight than just the calorie content. With regards to activity, this has to do with your body movement, improving muscle tone, as well as increasing efficiency where your body, with regards to your body's energy output. Next is stress management and emotional resilience. We all know what it is like to be under immense stress. And for some of us, we have habituated our brains to cope with stress through eating. And so stress management and effective coping skills becomes an essential building block for a healthy body composition. Next, it is sleep. Restful sleep is not only going to enhance your ability to manage and handle stress, it also helps you deal with cravings, it normalizes your digestive functions, and it enhances your focus and attention, hence your ability to stay on track. And most important, it balances all the hormones that are essential for fat loss. Okay, so these are the various topics that we'll be addressing at each of our webinars, except for support, which is always sort of the denominator and the factor that will always be there. Now, lastly, the cherry on top is the medical practices that we will discuss for helping you get unstuck. Sometimes it can feel like no matter how little you eat and how active you are, your body does not want to budge. There can occasionally be medical conditions leading to such events, and they need to be uncovered. So that's something that we'll discuss in our webinars. We'll also try to get to the root cause of it for you individually in our one-on-one visits. So some examples of that may be that you have an overburdened liver and you may require a focused detoxification program to kickstart things or to help you continue losing fat when you get stuck. Or there may be an underlying undiagnosed thyroid condition that's keeping you stuck. On the other hand, in rare occasions, there may be a mental emotional block where so you've been this way just for so long that it is hard for your brain to conceive of any other possibilities, in which case you may need to put in some extra work where your neurons and brain circuitry is concerned to bring them up to speed. Now, what are my intentions with regards to these webinars and this program? It is basically this. It is a forum for the sharing of information. As the old cliche goes, information is power. And consciousness raising is the first step in the process of a change in any habit. Okay. Secondly, it's for us to share experiences together, to share our learnings, and to ask questions. And third, to offer encouragement and motivation for you to stay on track. Okay. Remember, a change in any habit does not happen on a straight line. It is like a spiral upwards, but with every turn, we can sometimes return to old patterns that may need more work. And one of the best ways to bypass these setbacks is to ride the wave and get back on track when you're ready. And so that may require someone more objective to remind you that you've not fallen off the wagon, but that your brain just needed to put things on hold because it was afraid and becoming anxious with all the changes you're making. Remember, our brains, our nerves, the millions of connections that have taken months and years to develop are so set in their ways that anything outside of their comfort zone will release chemicals that cause anxiety. And so sometimes all that may be needed is a gentle nudge forward to help you get through the fear or the discomfort and the anxiety with the changes that your brain's just not comfortable with. Okay, so with regards to setting your goals, where realistic goals are concerned, my requirement for you and the purpose of this program is to set aside your scale completely. Do not weigh yourself for the next 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, however long you can go. You're going to set your goals on measurable and true criteria like your digestion, your mood, your energy, and lastly, your clothing size. And I'll tell you this, a realistic change in clothing size is about 1 size every 4 months or so. I know this in itself may be anxiety producing, may be off-putting, and uncomfortable for you. I understand that, but again, I remind you, do you want to lose weight only to find it again? I don't think so. Okay, so up until now, I've used the term weight loss. However, after this explanation on this slide, I'll no longer be using that term, and I will be referring to this program as a body composition program, okay? It is not a weight loss program. And I also want you to get into the habit of removing that expression from your vocabulary and your psyche. It is by no means encouraging or empowering, since for most of us, this term comes attached to many negative emotions that tend to weigh us down as opposed to being uplifting and motivating. So what we'll be referring to from here on is body composition. Our goal here is to increase lean body mass while reducing fat mass. And so have a look at these images here, you've got two ladies who on the outside look exactly the same. However, the healthy lady on the left has a healthy body composition, good muscle mass, and reduced fat mass as a result of her weight loss efforts. Really, last time I used that term. Really, as a result of her lifestyle. On the other slide, an apparently same-size lady has got reduced muscle mass and increased fat mass. Now, if they were to be on the scale right now, you may even see the healthy lady weighing more than the unhealthy. And that is why, along with eliminating that phrase from your vocabulary, I also want you to get in the habit of being comfortable without a scale. Again, both of these suggestions are going to bring some discomfort to you, and that is completely normal and expected. Try to remember that you've habituated your brain into finding comfort in getting on the scale, even though it's not always the bearer of good news. Regardless, it is an ingrained habit that your brain cells find comfort in. It is, however, absolutely essential to your success that you replace this habit. Perhaps from now on, every time you have the desire to get on the scale, place a set of dumbbells by your scale and do a couple of bicep curls. Or if the scale is in your bathroom, have a look in the mirror and tell yourself a positive affirmation. Okay? Now again, I want to emphasize that this program is not a diet. Our goal is to achieve healthy body composition through lifestyle changes of good eating habits, increased daily movement, and some tips and tactics for overcoming your challenges and obstacles with science-based tools that are practical, safe, and sustainable. Now, for the next part of today's webinar, we'll get into some basics regarding nutrition and the specific menu plan that you were given. And if you haven't had your first one-on-one session with me, don't worry, you'll still be able to follow along. Okay, so most of you are already aware of what's on the menu plan, and you're hopefully beginning to slowly modify your current food intake. Now, I'll briefly explain why you were given the menu plan that you were given. And to explain that, here's a little story. A few thousands of years ago, humans discovered farming. The agricultural revolution took off, and we advanced from hunter-gatherers to farmers. We settled down, formed societies, and the human race progressed to what we are today. As one evolutionary scientist puts it, think of a 100-yard football field. The first 94 yards are how long Homo sapiens spent as hunters and gatherers. As they became really good at farming, we shifted our diets, okay? But our genetics still have not shifted. So here we are today as the current Homo sapiens with our diet of grains, rich in pasta, bread, rice, corn, and so on. But our genes are still the same as they were as the Homo sapiens that were hunters and gatherers. Okay, so our genes have not shifted to the diet of the current grain-rich diet. So that is why you were asked to cut down on your grain intake, because our bodies genetically are still designed to be on a hunter-gatherer's diet. Sadly, however, still there are governments that continue to recommend 6 to 8 servings of grains a day, which is really one of the biggest causes of the chronic health issues that society faces today. Now, next. Let's let's disable this highlighter because I can't get to my slide. What happened here? Sorry, some technical difficulties. There we go. Oh, okay. So, again, this menu plan and this program is not at all about restriction. It is, however, about moderation. It is about being mindful of what you're eating, so your food choices of whole unprocessed foods, how much you're eating, being mindful of your serving sizes, when you're eating, so the regularity of your meals, as well as the importance of breakfast being a breaking of a fast. We'll talk about why that is essential for achieving your goals at one of the upcoming webinars. But otherwise, you want to be eating every 4 to 6 hours, but only when you're hungry. The how, basically, eating mindfully, never eating on the run or while you are in front of the fridge or over the counter. You want to be seated, savoring every bite, every flavor, the smell, the texture. And the reason for that is the satiety signal does not get sent to the brain if you are not eating mindfully. So if you want to eat your meal and feel satisfied, you need to make sure that you are eating mindfully, really enjoying your meals, truly mindful. So lastly, why are you eating? You want to become mindful of your hunger. Is it true hunger, or are you just eating out of habit, or because you're bored, or are you eating emotionally? Okay. Now for the rest of the webinar for today, we're going to have a quick look at the basic building blocks of food. So we have carbohydrates, which are made up of 3 kinds. We've got the simple sugars, starches, and the undigestible fibers. So the simple sugars are your glucose, fructose, so table sugar, the fruit sugars that are found in fruits and fruit juices, syrups, molasses, and honey. And anything that falls, that is basically not a starch and it's not a fiber, would constitute a simple sugar. Okay. Second, you have starches, which are found in root vegetables, in grains and legumes. Lastly, fibers that are in any plant-based food. Okay, so these are the undigestible parts of plants that make up the bulk of our stool and also provide food for the good bacteria in our gut. So it's essential that you consume good amounts of fiber. You all know that already, I'm sure. However, talking about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats for the next couple of slides, I also want to make this point. You do not have to obsess over your macronutrients, okay? As long as you're eating whole, real foods, so eating non-processed foods, you don't want to be eating things that come packaged, okay? As long as you're eating foods that are real and whole, you do not have to be counting every portion size, okay? However, for our purposes and depending on your current eating habits, a little awareness will not hurt. Okay, so initially, you may need to be measuring your serving sizes. You may be needing to ensure that your meals are balanced with proper amounts of carbs, proteins, and fats, okay? But that is only initially to just get an idea of how to properly have a balanced meal. Okay, next, a short conversation about simple sugars. The important thing to remember about simple sugars is that it will not be easy initially to eliminate it out of your diet, as it requires an adjustment in your habits until your taste buds catch up. What I mean by that is this. First, eating meals high in simple sugars will cause a rise in your blood sugar levels immediately, but about 2 to 4 hours later, you will notice a severe crash. So you may be feeling uncomfortable uncontrollable hunger, weak shaking, with an extreme drop in your energy levels. That is the result of the high sugar causing a release of high insulin. So insulin comes in to take the sugar out of your bloodstream and then some. So it takes the sugar and it causes a complete crash in a couple of hours, okay? You do not want that. For purposes of fat loss, the one hormone that you need to get under control is insulin. The reason for that is insulin is a growth hormone. And I think that can be sort of intuitive. A growth hormone causes growth, causes increase in mass. Okay, we do not want an increase in mass if our goal is to reduce our fat mass. All right, so the next point with regards to simple sugars is that your taste buds will, what is medically termed, down regulate if you're constantly exposed to sweets and sugars. Okay, so if your current diet contains a lot of simple sugars, your body will require over time a higher and higher intensity of sweet to satisfy your sweet cravings because your receptors have downregulated. And so in order to normalize the sweet sensors on your tongue, the only remedy is to gradually, slowly begin to cut down on your sweets. And so, you know, if you can commit to this gradual decrease in your sugar intake, you will notice weeks and months from now where you have a sip of a very sugary drink that you used to have regularly, and it was, just, regular sweetness to you then. You have a small sip of it and it's explosion of sweetness in your mouth, okay? Why? Because your taste receptors are now regulating themselves again. Your taste buds are not being bombarded with sweets, so there isn't that downregulation going on anymore, and you have a healthy and normal balance of sweet receptors on your tongue that can pick up on the slightest bit of sweet, okay? So now, what used to seem average sweetness to you, months from now, there'll be an explosion of sweetness in your mouth. Okay, I want you to sort of have that imagery in your mind. That is the goal you're working towards, but it needs to be done gradually and slowly. Okay, again, our goal is not deprivation. Next, we've got proteins. Now, the reason for inclusion of this slide is to remind you that if you don't have enough protein in your diet, your body will turn to your muscles for its amino acid needs. Certain amino acids are essential, meaning your body has no way of manufacturing them. And because they're essential for normal bodily function, they're essential for your heart muscle, for your intestines that regenerate daily. They're essential for your immune system functioning, as well as the manufacturing of neurotransmitters and hormones. And so if you are not having enough protein and essential amino acid intake, your body will turn to your muscle for its amino acid needs. And that is not something that you want to do or you want to happen in your body if your goal is improved body composition, meaning increased muscle mass, okay? You do not want to decrease your muscle mass. So make sure protein is in your diet and include it in your meals. Okay, so again, to recap, the role of protein in our body is for obvious metabolic functions. Also, without adequate essential amino acids, your body will break down muscle to meet its amino acid needs. Secondly, a very important point here, the satiety signals that are sent to your brain from your stomach to stop you from eating are primarily sent when there's been adequate protein in your meal. So if you're eating a carbohydrate-rich meal and it's, sure, it might be 300 calories or even 1,000 calories, you may not feel satisfied at the end of it if there's no protein in there. So that's where calories don't really matter. It's the way your meals are combined and the balance between the sort of nutrients in there that will determine your success, okay? And so the point I want you to remember is to make sure you're including protein in every meal. Even if you're having a snack, you know, you're having a piece of fruit as your snack. Don't have the apple on its own. Combine it with a protein, a couple of slices of cheese, you know, half a cup of cottage cheese, or a handful of nuts, or, you know, dip your apple slices in almond butter. So even if it's nothing but a simple midday snack, even then you want to make sure you're having some proteins with it, okay? Okay, thirdly, proteins are a lot more complex and difficult for your body to digest. Therefore, transit time through your digestive tract is increased. Now, what do I mean by transit time, and why is that important? Well, it's important because transit time has to do with your insulin release. Your goal at every meal is to increase transit time through your gastrointestinal tract. You want to make sure that as food enters your mouth, goes to your stomach, your small intestine, and your large intestine, it's passing through at snail pace, okay? It's going through really, really slowly. What that's going to mean is that as the food is passing through slowly, being very slowly digested, the sugars and the energy is released slowly over time. What that means is that insulin is also released very slowly over time. There are no spikes of insulin causing a crash, okay? Remember, your goal is to have insulin at a moderately low level and at a steady line. So you don't want any ups and downs, okay? And the way to do that is to make sure you are increasing transit time. And again, going back to this slide, number 3, proteins, because they're complex and difficult for your body to digest, they increase your transit time. And we'll get to fats at the next slide, but fats have the same role. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, get through the digestive tract very quickly, especially if they're processed and they've been, you know, milled, and you've got flour and they're not whole grains. They pass through really quickly. Something I shared my one-on-one visits that I'll just recap is, imagine 2 sinks, both of them filled with water. In one sink, you put bread and rice and pasta. These are all cooked, okay? Pasta, rice, and pastries, and basically everything starchy, okay? Put them in one. In the other sink, you put meat products, even though they're cooked, okay? Cooked legumes. You put vegetables and greens and the root vegetables, okay? So you put all of that in the second sink. You come back to these sinks half an hour later. What are you going to see in half an hour later? The one sink has turned into mush, the one with all the starches and the breads and the pastries. The other is likely still whole as it was, okay? Now imagine your stomach is 100 times more powerful of digestion, but basically break things down so much more powerfully than water does. So if you can just imagine what happens in your stomach and your digestive tract when you're having starchy things, you know, processed grains and processed grain products, basically, you get that mush, and that mush means sugar is getting released very quickly and insulin follows that. Not something you want. Now, lipids, the lipids or fats are of 3 kinds. 3 points to take away from this slide. Firstly, that fats are essential, just like proteins are, okay? Saturated fats and unsaturated fats, both essential. So unfortunately, the saturated fats have been made to be the devil, are actually essential, and they must come from your diet. Your body has no way of manufacturing saturated fats, and it needs it for its functioning. Second, omega-6s are inflammatory. So I want you to consider reducing your use of vegetable oils like canola, soy, and vegetable oils, and use butter, coconut oil, and grapeseed oil for cooking, and hemp seed oil and olive oil and avocado oil and other vegetable oils that are mostly containing omega-9s and omega-3s instead of just relying on omega-6 vegetable oils. Okay, so you want to reduce or completely eliminate vegetable oils like soy, canola, corn. Okay, next, hydrogenated fats are unhealthy and absolutely unessential. Okay, you want to stay away from them. So even if your margarine says non-hydrogenated, do not fall for that marketing tactic. At the end of the day, what the chemists have done, they've taken the inflammatory omega-6s that are normally liquid at room temperature, and they've changed the chemical composition of that oil to solid at room temperature. That is not healthy and is absolutely unessential, okay? So make sure you're staying away from the hydrogenated fats. And again, fats, just like proteins, because they are a little heavier and denser and more difficult for your body to digest, increase transit time and hence reduce the blood sugar and the sort of energy release into your bloodstream, and as a result, result in a moderate increase in insulin levels. So it eliminates all the potential spikes that you might be having from the carbohydrates that are in your meals. Okay, so carbs are okay, carbs are fine, nothing wrong with carbs, but make sure you are balancing them out with proteins and lipids with every meal. Okay, so that is our first session. To conclude, remember this. This was a conclusion of one health article I read recently. It went through a number of studies, and at the end it concluded we wouldn't need diet guidelines if we ate real food. Okay, so don't worry too much about, you know, the carbs, the carbohydrates, the calorie content. Do become mindful of your food combining. Do your best to combine your foods, but if you're staying away from the packaged and processed foods, you're most likely doing just fine. Okay, so when you're at the grocery store, remember to shop at the perimeter. Avoid the aisles if you can. The perimeter is where real food is at. Okay, to summarize what we learned in this webinar, first, your goal is to retrain your brain to not weigh yourself anymore. Whenever you are tempted to get on the scale, lift the dumbbell instead, okay? Secondly, you want to change your vocabulary to not use the word or the term weight loss. We are working towards improved body composition, increased muscle mass, reduced fat mass. Second, you can't rush something you want to last forever. You want to learn to enjoy the process, even the setbacks. As you slide occasionally, as long as you remember, you're still moving upwards on that spiral. So even though you might slide down once or twice, you're still moving up. And there's a lesson with every slide backwards. Try to find what that lesson is. Don't fight it, because if you don't learn that lesson, you'll keep falling in that same spiral, okay? So you want to learn your lesson and move beyond it. And we can work together to figure out what it is that each of your setbacks may be telling you on our one-on-one visits. Number 3, make a commitment to yourself that even if you do nothing else, you continue these webinars. Okay, I'm really hoping you've enjoyed this webinar so far and you're looking forward to the upcoming ones. But again, remember, support is the biggest determining factor for success. If you are wanting to achieve your healthy body composition, continue these webinars, get the support you need to begin making the changes necessary. Lastly, focus on whole foods. Again, if you don't want to measure your serving sizes, if you don't care to, at this point, have a balanced meal with carbs and proteins and fats, and you're finding that too much work, if all you can do is focus on whole foods, you're good. Okay, so because this is a recorded webinar, unfortunately, we don't have time for any questions and answers, but I really hope you've enjoyed this webinar so far. And I look forward to our next upcoming live webinar. See you then. Have a great day and take care of yourself.